I'm Riley Evan Ross. When Madison Schultz was born in the 80s, the percentage of women in the field of mechanical engineering was a dismal 5.8%. Now, 30-something years later, that figure has inched up to anywhere from 8% on the low end to 13% on the high end. That's roughly 0.25% per year at best. But those numbers don't appear to intimidate Madison Schultz. In fact, it seems to be what drove her out of a comfortable job and into her own firm that designs and builds empowered spaces. When I asked her in what ways she encountered sexism in her
gentleman
industry,
walks up to me and
she
he
had some
looks
real
at me and he
doozies.
goes, "Oh, you must work for the company that I'm supposed to be meeting." And I said, "Yeah, I am. In fact, you must be our consultant." And I reached to introduce myself and he goes, "You must be my interior designer." And I just smiled at him and I said, "No, I'm your engineer." And he said, "Oh, really? Well, good for you."
But it's not all bad. For those of us in the Oklahoma City area, Madison had a few cool projects. One of those happens to be a major
my
hotspot for
go-to
families
favorite
in Central
project
Oklahoma.
is the elephant building at the Oklahoma City Zoo. There are the brand name is Big Ass Fans.
Is that right?
Yes, that's the brand name of those fans.
Oh my gosh. This is Y'all Okay. Howdy, friends and neighbors. Welcome to Y'all Okay, the podcast about the state of Oklahoma and the people connected to it. I hope you're well. Today's guest is Madison Schultz. I met Madison earlier this year when we were both speakers for Ignite Oklahoma City, Ignite OKC. She gave a brilliant talk about addressing the underrepresentation of women in the STEM fields. The day I met her, she had tendered her resignation at a local Oklahoma City firm and struck out on her own, starting OKBeco. That's OKBECO. The BECO stands for Building Empowered Communities. Her website is okbe.co, where you can learn a little bit more about what she's doing and even see her quick 5-minute Ignite talk on the About page. Listening back on this interview, there's a lot of talk about diversity and what that means. What does it mean to have diverse representation? And as you'll hear, Madison hits the nail on the head by describing that diversity isn't just race or gender. Yes, it is those things. Those are components, but it's also age, it's background, it's experience, it's gender, and it is race, it's religion. I reference in the interview a McKinsey & Company report about the importance of diversity, and McKinsey's reports routinely show that companies with a larger mix of gender, ethnic, and cultural diversity show a higher correlation of financial performance than relatively homogenous companies, using a data set of over 1,000 companies in 12 different countries. Specifically, they show a strong link of higher diversity in executive level roles and the financial outperformance of that company. This supports a key idea in my own work, in assertions in my work, that those companies and cultures that invite in different groups and balance out their wants, needs, experiences, backgrounds, and live with the tension that naturally exists in there will find greater success not only in their bottom lines, but in their culture as a whole. These are rules that apply not just to companies, but also to societies as a whole as well. Now, if you're a math nerd, you might love this episode. If you're not a math nerd or it's too early, you might need a cup of coffee. If that's the case, friend, then I want to tell you about Roast Scout. Roast Scout is a monthly coffee subscription service that scours the country and finds you a brand new coffee from a different roaster every month. Are there that many coffee roasters in the country? Heck yes. They're everywhere. They take pride in what they do, and they want you to taste their premium product. And you can taste it. Just run over to roastscout.com and sign up, and you will start getting a 12-ounce bag of premium roasted whole bean coffee every month. But to sweeten the pot, we've worked out a pretty cool deal. go to roastscout.com/yallok. That is roastscout.com/yallok and get your first month free. Again, go to roastscout.com/yallok and get your first month free. So let's go now to my interview with Madison Schultz. So I'm sitting here with Madison Schultz in her beautiful home in Oklahoma City. The address is... I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that. Madison, how are you?
I'm good.
We met each other, I guess it was probably round about May 19th, in preparation for May 24th, where we were both Ignite speakers.
Yep. Ignite
OKC. And I was very interested in not only your speech, which was about getting more women in STEM. And if I say anything in this interview, feel free to correct me or whatever. Okay. As a white male, I'm actually kind of okay if you want to correct me. It's completely fine. I believe in equality. So, but you are, I believe, a math nerd. Is that appropriate to say?
Yeah, math and science nerd.
Yeah. And vocationally, an engineer.
Yes.
What kind of engineer?
I am a mechanical engineer.
Okay.
So, and then the subdiscipline I've chosen to specialize in is HVAC and refrigeration design in buildings.
That's okay. Before we get to the why of that,
okay,
which the why is a different conversation.
Whole other conversation.
Yeah. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up early years in El Reno. And then moved to Yukon when I was about 8 years old and went to most of my schooling there. Graduated from Yukon High School.
So you're a Miller.
I'm a Miller.
Great.
Yeah.
What year was that?
I graduated in 2003.
So that wasn't the new school then?
No, I was at the old high school that's on Garth Brooks Boulevard.
Right. What's there now? Are they using that space for something?
I don't know. It was such a huge school. You think they'd reuse it for something, but I'm not sure what's there now.
Yukon is an interesting thing. Like, it's always been, my experience with Yukon is very little, right? So I went to school at Westmore, and it was sort of like, in those days, it was, and I graduated in 2001, so I'm a little bit older than you. But in those days, like, we would have football scrimmages at Yukon, and it definitely felt agrarian.
Yeah,
had a lot. It was big, so we were sort of puzzled by the size, yet the energy that it put off. And I don't know. It seems a lot more metropolitan now with what they've done with the downtown area.
It has changed so much since I lived there. Like you said, it was very much a small town feel, but it was one of those class 5A schools or whatever it is. It was one of the bigger schools, so bigger football teams. But it was an interesting town to grow in. It was a suburb of Oklahoma City, so typical suburb. There were some things that happened in high school that made me realize how privileged I was, just being born the color I am. Just sheer luck happened to get me that.
Yeah.
It's a predominantly white school. I remember in elementary school we had the black family and the Mexican family.
Right.
There was one of each, and everyone else was white.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then in high school, I remember some pretty bad instances happening with a kid that moved in that was black and got bullied so bad that he actually ended up leaving the school. And a lot of us just thought that was the most insane, ridiculous thing we had ever heard. So we actually started a club to help get to know other races and other backgrounds. Yeah, and so we would meet once a month at lunchtime, and we'd pick a nationality, and hopefully we had someone at that nationality that went to the school, and they would come talk to us about their culture, and we'd bring food from that nationality and sit around at lunch and talk about it, learn a few phrases in another language. And so that was a really cool thing to do, to kind of get outside of our little white bubble and learn a little bit about someone else.
That's rad. What'd you call it? Do you remember?
It was called Tribe. So turning racism into brotherhood and equality. We even had little T-shirts made and everything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Was that your first foray into social issues?
Yeah, I think so. I think that was my first little dabble in that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was really cool. There were about 30 of us that would meet at lunch once a month and learn about each other.
Really bold. I'm looking at a picture of your graduation over there.
Yeah.
So where is that from?
I went to OU.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, you see a black robe, and it's really hard to tell. So.
Yeah. If you knew about the colors, what they mean, so that tassel that I'm wearing is orange, so that meant I was in the College of Engineering.
Okay.
And my husband's with me, so we're in our matching little gowns. We got to graduate together.
It's so cute.
He got his master's when I got my bachelor's.
Okay.
And you can see his little robe is orange, so he's also College of Engineering. He's an electrical engineer.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's the company that he works for?
He is the vice president at Spears New Technologies.
Spears New Technologies. So you were telling me about this, and they, again, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but they rebuild batteries or renewable batteries, particularly lithiums.
Yep. So they take the battery packs out of plug-in hybrids or full electric vehicles for several of the major OEs around the country. And if something happens with the batteries and they break, they get shipped here to Oklahoma. Yeah. And they get remanufactured, refurbished, and then sent back out, put back into cars. Or if they're not good enough to go back into a car, they will repurpose them for something else, for either grid storage or house storage or things like that.
Wow. Yeah. And so they are, I was a global business person, which is why this intrigued me, because they either recently opened an office in Copenhagen.
It's in the Netherlands. Okay. So, the town's called Ada, EDE, in Netherlands. Yeah.
Ada.
Yep.
I think we can, as Oklahomans.
We can pronounce it.
Yeah.
It's spelled a little different,
differently,
but we can say it.
And so, but the headquarters is here.
Correct. The headquarters is here and will probably stay here for the life of the company. Oklahoma is a great spot to have a startup, just low cost to run things. They need a fully air-conditioned warehouse. You can't really pay for that on either coast. Yeah. And they can ship to anywhere in the U.S. except for Maine in about 24 hours. So
yeah, I know.
It's a perfect spot for startups.
I used to work in a bike shop, and we were Al's Bicycles Northwest.
Shout out.
And I used to talk to all of my outside sales reps about this and how I feel like Oklahoma, where it sits, right in the center of two major highways between I-40 and I-35, like we could be a shipping mecca if we wanted to be, like right in the middle of the country. We could get it anywhere super fast. And I'm interested to see, so, I mean, that thought about Spears kind of helps with that. I'd like to see, what happens with this Amazon distribution center, if they realize any sort of like efficiencies or economies through that. I don't know.
It'd be
just a thought.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, and it's cheap to do business here. So if you're thinking of moving to Oklahoma, here's your spot.
There you go. So question about OU.
Yes.
Given the fact that you fell into, were you always in engineering? Were you always intentional about engineering, or did you change to that?
No, go back. In third grade, I was in the gifted and talented program. Oh my gosh, those are so important.
Humble brag.
Please keep those going. I felt like a weirdo. Like I was the super weirdo who, not necessarily smarter than people, just thought differently. My brain just worked different, and I just thought I was weird. And then I got into the gifted program and realized, oh my gosh, here are all my other weirdos, and now we get to see each other once a week, and I'm no longer the one weirdo. We're all weird, and this is amazing. So in third grade, we did a unit on space, and I fell in love. I was like, this is it. I'm going to be an astronaut. I didn't, know what that meant, but I was like, I'm going to do this. This is amazing.
Have to make plans yet.
Yeah, but this is it. I was in love with NASA and space and, always had loved science and math and all this. So that just kind of stuck in the back of my brain. And then whenever I got to high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And no one in my family had ever gone to college.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I didn't even know that it was really an option. And I didn't really even know where to begin, how to get scholarships, how to even apply. So I just got an application to OU because I thought, well, I can drive there from Yukon and still live at home.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, plus I look better in crimson than orange anyways. So.
I didn't consider the fact that by that point that the turnpike was finished, and so you could do that if you wanted to.
Hop on and get down there. So I got the application and realized that I had to take the ACTs, and I hadn't taken them. And this was my senior year, and I was like, well, guess I better go take those and hope I score high enough, because I got one time to take it before my application is due.
That's awesome. I'm connecting so easily with this.
So sure. I took it once. It was high enough to get into OU. Never took it again. Got into OU and decided to go there. So
that's awesome.
How that happened. Yeah, didn't know what I was going to do, but knew I love science and math.
Okay.
And thought, well, what kind of degree uses science and math? And I thought, well, engineering. So let's do that. And then realized I couldn't afford OU because I was paying for my own, paying my own way. And so thought, okay, well, what do I do now? And so I went to Oklahoma City Community College.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I got my bachelor's from there, my associate's in pre-engineering, which was one of the best decisions I ever could have made because the class sizes are so small.
Yeah.
And the people that are there are generally older and they're more serious about school. So these are the people in their 20s or so that are not there as fresh 18-year-olds.
Yeah, exactly.
Fresh out of high school, you know, on daddy's dime,
right.
There to party. They're there, they have lives, they have jobs, they're there to learn. And so first 2 years there, it was about half the cost of OU. Exceptional experience. All of my classes transferred straight to OU.
Yeah.
And then finished up my bachelor's at OU.
Okay, cool. We have very similar, not necessarily trajectories, but definitely paths. I was very similar with the ACT. Like, so for me, I knew that I was probably going to play football in college, but I still needed to take the ACT. So I took it. I actually took it twice. But the first time I took it, and the counselor was like, "Well, you did good enough to get into OU." And I said, "Well, I'm not playing football there, so because that's not me." But it was also good enough that it might have been on the low to average end of OU acceptance. It was actually enough to get me a lot of money at a small school.
That's awesome.
They're like, "You're a genius. You got a 24 on your ACT." And so,
you're like, yeah, I am.
Yeah, of course I'm
and
smart.
I can sports ball, so.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I did that for a bit, and then I also went to OCCC after I found out I couldn't sports ball. So
you could sports ball a little.
I could sports ball a little, but not enough to continue sports balling for what it was worth on my knees and my brain, as we later found out. Yeah, ended up, I took, there's an outside chance that we had the same calc classes at OCCC, only...
Maybe.
I mean, I don't remember much about them because I am not a math person. And so I did the bare minimum.
Which calcs did you do?
Well, to get a degree in economics, which is what I knew I was going to have to get, I had to end up going up to Calc 2. Oh. Maybe.
I started with Calc 3.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Then we definitely didn't take the same class.
Didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, almost.
You know,
maybe we were on campus at the same time.
Yeah, probably.
Passed each other in the hallway and didn't even know.
We had to have. All I remember is struggling to make my TI-83 give me the U shape. But other than that, I mean, I could get the straight line, sure. I could even get the lowercase n. Could not get the U shape, you know.
The elusive U shape.
So that's my experience with math. I know everything that I described has a term, or sines, cosines, tangents.
Parabola.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yep.
So then it was always engineering. You didn't like change your major or anything like that?
No, I know how to do engineering. I was trying to decide what type of engineering, because again, I had no idea what I was doing. So I just kind of Googled, or actually I didn't Google because Google wasn't really popular then, because we're that old. Yeah, it existed, but it didn't. So I just did some research on what types of engineers there were, and I thought civil engineering sounded interesting, and I thought mechanical sounded interesting. And so at OCCC, I still wasn't sure, but of course neither of those are majors there. It's pre-engineering, so it didn't matter. I needed to take all the same classes anyways. And my favorite show at the time was Orange County Choppers, where they make the motorcycles.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, that is pure mechanical engineering.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely just applied engineering. That's all they're doing all day long. It has nothing to do with civil.
I've never given Pauly that much credit.
It's basically applied engineering.
Wow.
You wouldn't think of him as a no. But yeah, for sure. So that made me realize that the thing that I loved the most was mechanical engineering, and so that's how I picked my degree. So
how'd you get into like HVAC and not air conditioning.
Yeah, air
That's
conditioning.
not,
That's
okay.
the AC of HVAC.
Well, yeah, heating, vacuum.
Heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Close.
Okay.
I mean, vacuum is flow of air, and I make air move, so...
Okay.
Close enough.
Okay, cool.
Close enough.
I'll take it. So, yeah, go ahead.
Basically, I needed a job.
Okay.
Yeah, so after I graduated OCCC, my living situation had changed, and I needed to be able to afford tuition, car payment, rent, electricity, and a water bill. And I thought...
Adult shit.
Oh, dear Lord, how am I going to do this? I'm
Yeah.
20. I don't know what I'm doing, but I got to be able to pay the bills. And so I just looked up engineering companies in Oklahoma. ACEC is the American Council of Engineering Companies, American Consulting Engineering, something.
Sure, we all know that.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So I looked on their website and found engineering companies in Oklahoma and kind of looked at what they specialized in, or specifically in Oklahoma City, because I needed to be able to commute to Norman to finish my degree.
Gotcha.
And found a few that sounded interesting, applied, got a job. So I actually started working when I was 20 years old.
Nice.
And it was at an HVAC company, and I ended up loving it. So I worked there as I finished my degree. I stayed there at that same company for another 4 years after I graduated, got my license, my engineering license, and then moved on from there.
Man, that's so cool.
Yeah, I was pretty lucky that I loved it right away.
So let's talk about, I want to capture on Mike what your most memorable or favorite project was.
Okay, my go-to favorite project is the elephant building at the Oklahoma City Zoo.
I can't believe you did that.
Yeah, that was a really cool project. So that has radiant heated floors in it so that the elephants aren't laying down on cold concrete in the winter. It's got what people call a swamp cooler or evaporative cooling to help keep it moderately cool in the summer. It's not fully air conditioned. It won't get cold in there, but it will keep the elephants from getting too hot.
And there are some big old fans.
There are some, the brand name is Big Ass Fans.
Is that right?
Yes, that's the brand name of those fans.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they have another competitor, but their name isn't quite as cool. It's Big Ass Fans.
Yeah.
Interesting fact, that was not the original name of the company. It was high volume, low speed fans, because that's what they do.
Right.
And they kept installing them, and their customers would look up and say, that's a big ass fan up there. And so they changed the name of their company.
Well, good.
I know, it's
hope
customer
I
names.
hope that really paid off for him.
Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, it makes sense. It's just big ass fan.
So I'm envisioning like the entire elephant exhibit. So with that, it's a huge operation, right? I mean, that entire ramp. So the part that you covered was the building portion.
The building, and then all the pumps that feed the waterfalls and the pool outside.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because
cool.
I also do plumbing design.
What was the timeline on that?
I think we had about 3 months to do design, 3 to 6 months.
Oh my
I think it expanded a little bit because there were quite a few changes as we went through that. But while we were doing that, we were also designing their Asian exhibit at the same time, which ended up getting put on hold, and then that one got redesigned later. They changed a bunch of stuff. So I actually got to do 2 designs for the zoo, and that was pretty cool.
So tell the listeners why you had to really stick to your timeline significantly.
Yes. Yeah.
Why
So
is that?
elephants, whenever they get knocked up, are pregnant for 22 months. So Oklahoma City Zoo had taken the female elephants and they had sent them off to another zoo, I think it was in Canada, to get them pregnant so they could start a breeding program in Oklahoma City.
Wow.
So the elephants are gone, and they said, all right, let's get this thing finished with design, let's get it built, because when the elephants come back, we want them to give birth here. And so if the building's not done, we have a problem.
Oh, okay.
So it was hurry up and get it done because we've got baby elephants coming. So it got done, and the baby elephants came back, and now Oklahoma City has a great breeding program.
And that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so that's why, no matter, I mean, you're an engineer. You never expected to know that the gestational period for an elephant was 22 months.
Or I'm going to get gross for a second. How big floor drains need to be if elephant poo goes down them so you don't clog the pipes.
There you go.
Didn't ever know I needed to know that or realize how many discussions I was going to have about that. Or
Right.
It's a fact I could live without. But I know it now, so
But given
there's that.
I mean, since you do design plumbing systems, the fact that you know about elephant poop
is
more than you know about human poop at this point.
yeah,
pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool is a word.
You never know what's going to happen. So is that and now you're on your own. You're an independent.
Yes, yeah. So 3 months ago, I took the leap, and I'm starting my own engineering / property development company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's growing into something pretty exciting.
So are you going to focus, you broaden it out beyond HVACs, or
Yes.
tell me about it.
Okay, so this whole discovery process started about 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I went to a leadership retreat and was really inspired by what I had learned there. And so I messaged the instructor later and said, hey, we got to know each other. What are your top 5 book recommendations for me? I'm trying to grow as a person. And he said, I can't narrow it down to 5. I'll give you 10. So I worked through that reading list. Sure. Why not? More books. So one of the first books I read was Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why.
Okay.
And that book was life-changing. That's one of those life-changing books for me. Mm-hmm. It talks about the idea of we should focus on why we do what we do instead of what we do and how we do it, and how big of an impact that can have on yourself, on your company, on your happiness, on your bottom line even. You're going to make more money if you're focusing on why you do what you do. And so it took me a while to kind of figure out what that meant for me and what that meant for the company I was currently working for. And so, but I didn't really know how to apply all this stuff in a practical way.
Sure.
I mean, I'm an engineer, not a book person. So I'm like, I don't even know how to take these abstract concepts and make them real. Then Simon's team came out with a sequel to the book called Find Your Why. And it's literally a how-to guide to how to find your why. And I thought, oh, this is what I've been missing. This is it. So I took it to the company I was working for and I said, I'm so excited about this idea. I really think this is going to help our company. This is such an amazing thing. Took it to my boss and then their boss, and I got all the way up to the board of the company, and they decided it wasn't important enough to them to do. And I thought, I believe in this so strongly, and if they don't, then maybe it's time that I just do this on my own. Because if I have my own company, I get to control if we do our why or not, right?
Right.
So started working through figuring out how I was going to start my own company and what that was going to look like.
So you sort of, did you develop what some would, or what I would call, and what, if I call it something, then that's when I say some would call it an exit strategy?
I got an exit strategy in mind. And the most important thing first, before I left my company, was I needed to figure out what my personal why was.
Yeah.
Things didn't quite work out in the right order, but I did get my why. Yeah. So my why is creating safe spaces so that others... Sorry, my dog is moving around right now and distracting me. Creating safe spaces so that people are empowered to pursue their passions.
Okay.
So I'm really, really passionate about helping people figure out what is the thing that they want to do and giving them the skills that they need, empowering them and helping them to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was, all right, now that I know my why, my company needs to align to that. And what does that mean? Yeah. So I've been doing engineering for 12 years. I'm pretty good at it. I've got a lot of projects under my belt across the country. So does that mean I still keep doing engineering? And I realized I'm going to keep doing that in the aspect that I can, where I can. But what it really means to me to empower communities is to go into these areas that need something and then give them that. And I want to do that through commercial real estate development.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
I'm excited.
Yeah, as well you should be. You know, you and I have talked about the why question in Simon Sinek, and so for those that aren't familiar with that concept, I think one of the more famous TED Talks is a really crappy video, honestly. Compared to the other TED Talks, this is like a TEDx, but it's Simon Sinek, and just Google Simon Sinek Start With Why, or actually go onto YouTube and search it.
Golden Circle, I think that's the name
of it. Right, yeah, that's sort of what he calls is
18 minutes long.
Yep. And it's totally worth a watch.
Yes.
And then it'll get you down this rabbit hole of other Simon Sinek videos, which are also very much worth watching.
Yes, you will soon be addicted and a fangirl or boy like me.
Oh yeah, I love his style. He's fun to watch. I don't mind saying he's very handsome. We'll work this out on a different episode. But yeah, it's totally worth watching. I was let me think here. Was another one of those books, and I think this might have led you into the Ignite talk and the stuff that you just laid out. Was another one of those books Yes Man, or the concept of saying yes to stuff?
Oh, yeah. I had a year of yes.
Now, what does that mean?
So I said yes to every opportunity that came my way.
So this
for
wasn't
a year.
inspired by a book or anything?
No, this was just, I'm kind of bored. I want to see what's out there. And I say no a lot because I'm just scared. So I'm going to just say yes.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a fun year.
So is that how you decided to do the leadership program and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think that was during my year of yes. It came along, and normally I'd find some excuse. Oh, I'm too busy, or I don't have the time, or this costs too much money, or oh, well,
Right.
I'm not going to go. And I just said, I'm doing it. I'm not going to wait for anyone's permission. I'm just going to do it. And
so how did awesome. What does that look like? So if you can't afford something, but you're self-disciplined enough to say yes to something and not put it down, how does that manifest? What does that end up looking like? Do you find the money? Do you borrow it? Do you put it on credit and pay it off later? What does that do?
Well, I'm not your typical millennial. I'm pretty fiscally responsible. So for the love of God, don't go into debt over stuff.
Right.
But it may mean just finding the courage to ask someone for some money. So in my case, it was going to my job, to my work at the time. And I didn't so much ask them. I said, I signed up. Here's the receipt. I need to be reimbursed for this.
Yeah.
And they didn't say no.
Yes. Absolutely.
And if I had never had my year of yes, I just wouldn't have signed up and wouldn't have gone.
Can I tell you something?
Absolutely.
You sound like a white dude when you say that.
You know,
that's what we do.
Yeah. During part of my year of yes, slowly after that, I just said, would a man do this? And if the answer is yes, then I did it, because why not?
Yeah.
You know, we'll talk slight detour. We'll talk about the pay gap with women in STEM.
Let's do it.
Okay. So the pay gap with women in STEM is only about 10%. Okay. That's closable.
Yeah.
That comes down to negotiating skills,
right?
Which women traditionally aren't as good at when it comes to salary.
Right.
So that 10% pay gap, a lot of it could be closed just by us, by acting like a man, by asking for the pay that we want, by asking for more pay than we want and hope they'll say yes, and if not, negotiate down to a pay that we're both happy with.
Right.
So, yeah, would a man do it? Yeah, then so can I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just for the audience that didn't get the vocal inflection there, was when she said aren't as good at, and her voice went up, there's a quote, there's a finger quote in there because it implies that it's just not something that has been stressed.
Correct.
I don't know if it's a stereotype or not, but it's just that idea of it has been signaled as a masculine thing.
Yeah. It's a holdover from, well, it's sexism, pure and simple. Yeah. Women are taught to be accommodating and to be polite and to be sweet. And to walk into a salary negotiation and to say, I want $10,000 more than what you're advertising this job for, or I want a 10% raise, or I want this and I want that. That's not sweet, and that's not kind,
right.
And that's not accommodating. And so it goes against the things that we were taught. But the fact is, that's okay.
Yeah.
We can stand up for ourselves and be assertive and express to the world what we want.
Yeah.
Men do it. Why can't we?
Yeah, exactly. I think the more you see that, culture catches up. It definitely feels like there's something happening right now where that tide is shifting. I was listening to, it was just yesterday. I was listening to a TED radio hour, and I can't remember the researcher, but she wrote a book in 2012 that was called The End of Men. And it was really weird. So it definitely made the point that so 52% of college graduates are women.
Interesting, because 52% of the population are women. So
right,
hey, how about that?
Yeah. So more college graduates, more are women, and even there's more managers that are women than men across the United States. But the C-level executives are still very underrepresented. But just this idea of when, and not necessarily in STEM, but definitely in other fields, there are more women, and you see in some areas a narrowing of things, but there are definitely still gaps.
Yeah.
gaps in pay, gaps in representation. So since your Ignite talk was about representation of women in STEM, why don't you give me it's so easy to, whenever you're talking about the same things that we talked about in our Ignite talks, to go past 5 minutes.
Yes.
So let's talk about it.
Okay. So the Ignite talk is 5 minutes, and I say it was part 1 of 52.
Yeah,
I have a whole big soapbox on women in STEM. So I focused on the first part of that was children and little girls and little boys, and getting girls interested in STEM and in science and technology, and realize that being a little weirdo, a little nerd is a good thing. If I ever call you a nerd, that's the biggest compliment I could ever give you.
I think that's one of those terms has been like reappropriated to mean a good thing.
To mean a good thing. So when you look at perhaps the toys that boys and girls are given to play with, boys are given Legos and Nerf guns, even video games. They all help you with spatial reasoning skills.
Right.
And they help you learn about, when you throw a ball, it goes in an arc. What's that arc? It's a parabola. And why is that caused? It's caused from acceleration due to the earth, blah, blah, blah. You'll learn all those things in physics in high school. But boys start learning these things a lot younger. And girls are given little toys like, they have pink Legos, but they also have brooms and mini kitchens. Shopkins.
Do you know what Shopkins
yes.
is? Okay.
Yes. Baby dolls. And there's nothing wrong with these toys.
Right.
But they don't teach girls the same spatial reasoning skills, the same math skills that boys are learning.
Yeah, they reinforce sensitivity and caring and stuff like that.
And being a housewife.
Right.
And again, nothing wrong if someone chooses to be a housewife. But we're giving boys these extra skills that we're not giving girls. Yeah. And that is unfair.
And to represent the opposite side of that, we have done historically a pretty poor job of giving those sensitivity-based, caring, soft skills toys to boys and encouraging them to do other stuff, which is why you have some of the problems of lack of compassion, lack of empathy in the older generation of, or once those kids grow up.
Yeah. I heard a quote one time that stuck with me that said, feminism will still have its place. Well, and let's define feminism. Feminism just means that men and women are equal. Yeah. It doesn't mean women are better than men, because they're not. Yeah. They're equal. So feminism will still have its place until a man can choose to be a stay-at-home dad and not have his masculinity questioned. Yes. So until that day happens, feminism has its place.
Yeah, that's the key of whether or not that masculinity is questioned. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I think I went off on a tangent there.
That's okay.
But yeah, so what do you see? What's your experience been? Not necessarily, yes, in college, also in the workplace. Like, as you graduated with your engineering degree, like how many women were in your graduating class?
I think we had about 200 people graduate in my graduating class, and I think there were 4 women.
Are you serious? Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the national average is about I think it's up to about 12 to 15% graduating. In the industry, it's worse. It's about 8% in mechanical engineering. Whoa. Yeah, 8%. So 92% men, which is sad.
That is sad. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. And I was listening to a podcast. It was about women in STEM, and the interesting thing. So there are definitely some portions of I guess the science industry, so I'll just say broadly STEM, that have actually closed that gap. So like biology, I think chemistry, but some of the more classical sciences are graduating and employing women because I guess there have been concerted efforts to sort of not necessarily rebrand or get rid of the stereotypes, but just send different signals of like you can do this. Yeah. Quite simply.
Yeah. If you're not happy with the demographic in something, you have to actively change it. You can't just hope it's going to change. So a lot of these programs have actively recruited women. Yeah. The same thing with actively recruiting people of color. You know, low percentage of women in STEM, but even lower percentage of women of color in STEM.
Right.
I mean, we need all these different perspectives in the room. Diversity is something that is such an important thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
So age diversity, gender diversity, ethnic diversity, background diversity. I mean, if you can diversify a room and have it really represent the population around you.
Mm-hmm.
So in Oklahoma, 38% of the population are white men.
Mm-hmm.
So let's have 38% of the room be white men. We need them there.
Yeah.
52% of the population are women. We should have 52% of the room be women. 13% of the population are African Americans. Let's get our African American buddies in the room, and together with all these different backgrounds, you're able to come up with better ideas, more creative ideas, especially in STEM when you need that creativity to come up with the next thing, the next piece of technology. Yeah. And if you've got a room full of 10 people that are all straight white men, you're going to get 10 different versions of the same idea.
Yeah, and I think the research bears that out. I think in 2015 or something like that, McKinsey and Company put out this huge report from all the studies and observations they've done that supports that idea of like diversity leads to more creative decision making, more creative outcomes. Often you will see either higher growth or at least more steady growth, depending on the field and the metrics they use. I mean, that's the problem, is you can use different metrics for different things. But the research bears that out. I saw this Harvard Business Review just had a blog where some research has been done to show that very thing. It reinforced the idea that the more diverse groups come up with more creative solutions, but they utilized what was considered a cultural broker. So someone whose role it was to be a go-between for these different groups. So all this diversity would like feed in. Those are your inputs based off of, as you say, human experience, upbringing, whatever influences the cocktail that you are as a human comes out in these board meetings. And just someone that's socially adept can facilitate and lead to these better outcomes.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So given your experience with I'm not going to say the company. So given your experience, what is your professional experience has also sort of like reflected that disparity as well?
Yeah, for sure. I'll give you an example. Our team was traveling somewhere to meet a client out of state. One of our team members was a consultant that didn't actually work for our company and was meeting us at the airport. We were all going to fly out together. So I'm sitting there at the airport, and my clipboard wouldn't fit in my backpack. So I needed to have a set of plans out while I was walking around the site. So I had this giant, oversized clipboard.
Yeah,
and just,
we've seen those.
Yeah, just huge clipboard, just kind of attached to my backpack. So I'm sitting there, and this older gentleman walks up to me, and he looks at me, and he goes, "Oh, you must work for the company that I'm supposed to be meeting." And I said, "Yeah, I am. In fact, you must be our consultant." And I reached to introduce myself, and he goes, "You must be my interior designer." And I just smiled at him, and I said, "No, I'm your engineer." And he said, "Oh, really? Well, good for you."
Oh my God.
And that response, I wish I could say was a one-off, but that's a really common response. First shock, and then the comment, "Good for you."
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's a fun one.
Yeah, I feel tingles whenever you said that, but honestly, like I've never experienced someone pat me on my head.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that happened quite a bit. So, if you ever meet a female engineer, you can probably bet she's going to be statistically probably a little bit feistier, a little bit fierier, a little bit stronger, because in order to make it in the industry, you've got to be able to look someone in the eye and say, "No, you're wrong. I'm an engineer. I'm good at it."
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's nuts.
Yep.
Oh, tread lightly.
Or just don't make assumptions.
Yeah.
Or just choose to assume something different. So when you meet a woman and she says she's in the medical field, choose to assume she's a doctor and not a nurse.
Right.
She might be a nurse, but she might be a doctor.
Yeah. Or not just an OBGYN.
Yes.
Like,
oh, are you a surgeon?
So many things. Yeah, exactly. There's so many things.
Yeah, and if you start consciously choosing to change your assumption, those will just become your default assumptions. And you'll
Right.
start just assuming that the woman you meet is in charge.
Yeah.
I had another assumption made recently when I announced that I was starting my own company. Reached out to a colleague of mine and just said, "Hey, I'm super excited. Here's my new contact information. I'm starting my own company." He relayed it to one of his colleagues who reached back out to me and said, "I heard you and your husband were starting a company."
Yeah.
Just because my husband's an
just a weird
engineer.
little thing.
And
Yeah.
I said, nope, just me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it happens.
Yeah, it's wild how that happens. So before we get into the final five, which I think should probably be easy for you, I did want to ask one question about the going back to saying yes to anything and everything. You, as I understand, if I remember correctly, are an introvert.
Yes.
So, by the way, thank you for opening up your space to me.
Which is why we're doing this at my house and not somewhere else.
Right, exactly. So, what was that like? What did you learn about your introversion and saying yes to things? Because when you say yes to things, I mean, that's kind of inherently, for the most part, an extroverted activity.
Yeah, you're putting yourself out there.
Right.
I had to learn to say yes to things, but also to say yes to myself.
Yeah.
And to, whenever I felt overwhelmed and I was doing too much with people, to say yes to hiding at my house for an evening and not going out. So I think that's really important, to learn to prioritize yourself and what quiet time you need.
Yeah. It sounds like, I mean, that would be an interesting experiment to solidify one's boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my wife and I talk a lot about boundaries, and it's part of like my moderation talk is boundaries. Essentially, in short, I think Brene Brown defines it as establishing what is and is not okay.
Yes.
And so by saying yes to stuff, which is cool,
yeah,
for external activities, like you can't be boundaryless.
Right.
You have to take care of yourself.
Yes, you do. You have to figure out what you need and don't be afraid to ask for it and get it.
Yeah. All right. Madison, this has been great. I'm going to get to the final five.
Okay.
What's your morning routine like?
No.
No morning routine?
No, I mean, no. Like, hit the alarm. No, I don't want to get up.
Oh.
Not a morning person.
Okay, cool. So, got it. And then once you roll out, no yoga or anything? It's just struggle and power through?
Just try to wake up. No, usually first thing in the morning is come down, check on the dog, let her out, have some morning coffee, and get my day started. Double check my calendar, know what I'm doing for the day, and get ready and hit the road.
What's your evening routine like?
I would like to say that it's full of philosophy books and educational things.
Like most of
it's
us.
Netflix.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
What are you working through right now?
I am watching Monk.
What?
Old TV show?
Yeah.
Do you remember
Tony
that
Shalhoub.
show?
Yeah,
yes.
of course.
Yes. I'm currently binging that one.
That's an interesting choice.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've binged through quite a few, but that is my current one.
Favorite book? We might have talked about it earlier in the interview. We'll start with why, but
yeah, that's a good one. I think that's probably my current favorite. I'll talk about life-changing books. Cosmos by Carl Sagan.
Oh, sure.
Life-changing.
We have an original copy of that. First print.
Shut up.
Was given it to it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, shout out to Becky and Broken Arrow.
Thanks, Becky. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, that was a life-changing book for me in high school. Simon Sinek. Also, a really great quick read that I really liked was Neil deGrasse Tyson's Astrophysics for People in a Hurry.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't sound like it'd be a quick read with the title
great.
Astrophysics, but super great book.
It's deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
All right. Who's your favorite musical artist?
I don't know that I have one. I knew this question was coming, and I was trying to figure out who it was. So I just...
It could be a couple.
Yeah, I can tell you who I was listening to at different points in my life.
All right.
So, like, high school...
This is fun.
Yeah, during high school, the CD in the CD player was Miles Davis.
Oh, interesting choice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was a good one. My current favorite Pandora station is Forest Day. Don't know.
Unfamiliar.
Okay, it's some good music.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I want to check that out. And what's your favorite spot in Oklahoma?
Does my grandma's house count?
Oh, absolutely. You
Okay,
kidding
I
me?
haven't talked about her at all, but
Whoops.
she's my favorite person. She lives. See, my Okie accent comes out even when I talk about her.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, my husband can tell I'm always on the phone with her or whenever he walks in because my Okie comes out. She's down in Ardmore, so I think my grandma's house is probably my favorite spot.
That's as good an answer as you can get.
Yep.
Madison Schultz, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Are you watching a movie?
No, I'm gonna watch Ken Burns.
It's not really good.
You don't think Ken Burns is good?
I don't want to watch Ken Burns. You can't watch Ken Burns.
See there, that's good stuff. It's good stuff. Very special thanks to Madison for opening up her home and being so willing to talk. As I said earlier, if you want to know more about what she's doing, or you want to hire her for a project, go over to okbe.co and sign up for notifications. Check her out. And also, like I said earlier, head over to that About page and watch her Ignite talk. It's fantastic. Special thanks to Roast Scout for the coffee. Head on over to roastscout.com and sign up today. And if you'd like to get a hold of me, you can email the show at yallokpodcast@gmail.com, or you could like the Facebook page or follow me on Instagram at r_e_ross. And that's it. Thanks for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.